Truth Bombers Podcast.
Truth Bombers Podcast.
The group chat turned podcast with your hosts, Russ, Lachie, and BJ.
You went from a sugar ginger beer to water.
It's a Monday. It's a school night.
Well, mate, I saw you on Saturday night.
Exactly. I think it's just a touch higher.
Yeah.
All right. How you feeling?
I'm sweating.
That's all right. You fucking sweating here most.
I was in my appointment for I got there at 5:30. I left at like 6:45. Let two doctors talk to me.
They're like, don't hesitate to call 000 at any time. You say you're an Essendon supporter and you can't have a weak heart. It's already stressed.
Yeah, exactly. I can't go in the preseason like this.
Better do it now than round one. Perfect segue. Lads, episode 7. We're getting through them. 7 episodes in. Season's just about to start. I feel like we're getting a bit of momentum. We're getting a little bit of flow. We're starting to find our feet.
Yeah. After Saturday night's game, I really felt like, all right, the season's right there. Like, it's really close.
I can't believe it's Saturday and we're off. Like, I still can't believe the season's already started. It's normally you have like a little bit of a gap between the preseason and there's a long ride up, but I feel like it's coming a little bit early this year.
Well, it starts on a Wednesday, so it is an earlier start than normal. And I think it's cool that it kicks off with D's and Western Bulldogs. I think that's a great
I like that too.
Grand final replay first up. Then you've got more traditional rivals with like Richmond, Carlton the next night and pushes in. Yeah, it's good.
I don't know about you guys, but I actually really enjoyed the footy frenzy that was on during the first lockdown when there was a game on every night. It was
game of night.
It was something to watch every night of the week. It'd be hard to do a podcast.
Yeah, very difficult.
If you were running a podcast, it'd be challenging. But episode 7 of the Truth Bombers podcast, we are the Group Chat Gone podcast. And we're cracking on. Russ today joining us via Zoom link as he's done the responsible thing and had his booster shot. So he'll be joining us live from the bedroom.
Well, I'm live from Richmond. Novavax, special first, not technically allowed for a booster shot, but they didn't approve me for Pfizer. So some background issues there.
I can see a positive. Russ will not exit the screen.
Yeah.
So he is front and center. Yeah, front and center for once.
Wait.
He won't slowly drift out.
Wait till I get animated later.
I feel like there's also the room feels bigger without the laptop right in front.
All this room for activities.
Yeah. We could get the Sharon app made up. The Sharon. And we've got a lot on the menu tonight. Which excites me because I think, as I said, as we're getting close to the season and we start to get a bit of a format and a flow, we probably will have a bit more of a regular kind of outline with the things we want to touch on, which squeezes out a few of Russ's last-minute unprecedented new segments that he likes to bring to the table.
Got a backlog I need to get through.
So obviously we're going to go through the game. We'll talk the good, the bad, and the ugly of the AAMI Community Series against St Kilda. We're going to bring all the updates from the Essendon VFLW team as they continue on their merry way. We've got locks. We've got around the grounds, and of course we're going to have quick draw questions, which is no way a rip-off of questions without notice from SEN. So
No, not at all. SEN don't come for us.
Now, boys, we're obviously a community vibe here at the podcast, and we like to include the following as much as we can. So a couple of special shout-outs. Before we get started, the first one goes to long-time OG listeners Dean and Ange, who got married on Saturday, friends of ours.
Congratulations.
I was best man. Russ was there front and center, and I was actually accosted after my best man speech for not giving the podcast a plug.
No, well, God, let's slow back. Gave the quick word. We've got a captured audience here. Did we give a plug for the podcast? No, nothing. Not one mention of it. The groom came on and put about a 5-minute segment for the MC's side hustle business. Couldn't get one shout out to the podcast. That's all I'm saying.
Russ, the more beers Russ had, the more he was engaging with people who didn't know how to tell them what we did.
Give us a
So,
follow, listen.
I'm sure we'll see the Instagram and the
Big
YouTube.
Vietnamese community coming on board next week. That's all
We
I'm
could have
saying.
the Vietnamese following up after the wedding.
Perfect.
And our second shout out to Russ, our mate Richard Tweddle, who's there in Richmond with you, who was a man who only would come to the Prince to drink Negronis, didn't really care too much for the game, but we've roped him in, given him some Essendon gear, and this year for his birthday we've actually presented him with his first year membership, so he'll be in attendance live at the ground this
Been
year.
converted,
His
I like
flag, number one, with his first year badge.
With his first year badge, and we've got a bit of a shout out from him as well, which I might play later on. I particularly like the way he mispronounced and stumbled through the podcast, so he's right up with Perkins and Kyle Langford. So we are off to a flyer. All right, let's get to it. AAMI Community Series. We went down to St Kilda. So last week we had a scratch match hit out against the Dogs, and we were singing that every match counts. And then I think you have a loss against St Kilda, and you go, well, it's only a practice match. And
If you win, it's a flag. If you lose, it's just a practice game. No one cares about them.
Yeah, so very typical Essendon. It looks like matching their top sides and then probably letting the ones that we really should be winning get away, particularly after the conversation we've had where we think the Saints are going to finish this game. We'll get to the good, we'll get to the bad, we'll get to the ugly. Russ, 3 words to describe the game from you.
Replay, very hungover, because we were at a wedding, like Ben said, honouring our favourite podcast listeners. We promised each other that we wouldn't tell each other the scores. And about 3 a.m. in the morning, somehow Ben knew, and he told me, and ruined the surprise. But he said, if I've already found out, then you need to find out too, to ruin your night too.
We're all in this together.
Yeah, we're all miserable together.
Yeah, we're always together. If I'm miserable, so are you, which I think just sums up part of our friendship group plus the Bombers way. We're all in this together.
It's also why Mateo is a member of the Essendon Football Club. Yeah. And yourself, 3 words to describe the game?
Does not matter. Like we just mentioned, it's just pre-season. Just
I love
pump the
that.
brakes. Like, it doesn't matter too much. If we had have won, yeah, we're on our way, but we didn't. So it does not matter.
I had messy, clumsy, and promising.
I agree with both those statements.
Yeah, I mean, for most of the game, it looked like St Kilda had the ball, on a bit of a string when they had it, and when we turned it over, it looked like we were trying to kick around a bar of soap. I don't think
Yep.
I've seen so many just clumsy mistakes, dropped
Drop
chest
marks,
balls going over the back,
Holes in the
sliding,
holes in the field.
yeah, it just looked a little bit like, first, I guess, real hit out, close game, and it just looked like there was a bit of nervousness. Maybe a couple of guys in there that obviously are playing for their spot. Maybe they're a little too keen to impress or think they have to do too much. I think maybe part of the forgotten art of football is that role player. And you go out there and you do what you're supposed to do and you beat your man. You've done your job. You don't have to be on the highlight reel or in the stats or in the write-up or in the talks. And I think that's, again, goal kicking as a skill, something definitely that let us down. And I think we had 7 or 8 more scoring shots than them and we ended up losing the game. So that was more than 3 words. But yeah, I think let's get into it. There was still a lot of good to come out of the loss, lots of lessons. I'll start with you, mate. Do you want to give me a 3-2-1 or some of the things that you saw that you really enjoyed?
Let's go with 3-2-1. I've got Perkins as my 3. Okay, we've lost Russ.
He's gone out of screen already. Look at him.
Hold down.
Perkins as my 3. I've got Wright as 2, and I've got
Yep.
Caldwell as well. With special mentions to Parrish and Merritt. Merritt only played the first half, had 20 odd, around 20 odd disposals. Parrish played most of the first half in the midfield, then got pushed forward a little bit. So we tried a few different things, and I guess we ended up losing. So it doesn't matter that we tried a few different things. But Perkins had a great game. I think he gives us a little bit of something up forward. If Tipper's not going to be there, Stringer's obviously potentially back for round 1, but we just need some excitement forward, and I think he offers that. Wright, for once, started clunking them, although the first chest
couple,
mark, And then the second one he went up for, I was like, my God, he's out of form. And then he clunked one. It looked like he got some confidence for that, kicked 3 goals. And Caldwell was sort of like there and thereabouts most of the game. Yeah.
It's hard for a 2 meter plus bloke to essentially take a hanger. They don't tend to get too far off the game, but he did take a tall man hanger.
Absolutely.
I completely agree. Maybe my outside of frame 3-2-1, which I really enjoyed as my biggest positive for the game, were guys that we've put the real hard word on over the first 6 episodes of the show, of guys that really need to show us something.
Tom Hurd
was probably from Russ's 3-2-1. I thought James Stewart played the best game that I've seen him play. I think he took 5 or 6 decent intercept marks across the back 50. His disposal, even on his 45-degree kicks changing directions back into the corridor, was clean. And those balls that he couldn't mark, he was contesting, tackling in. That's the best game I've seen James Stewart play. If he gets better from that point, I am more than happy to have him as one of our earlier picks when we're putting him in or writing up the team for the week.
I think you're right there, where he's been the last 3 games getting better and better. Like, I was the first person to put my hand up. I was very suspect if he could play that last man back. And from the intra-clubs to the practice games to the actual official preseason games, I think every single game is getting a little bit better, and I've got a little bit more confidence in him that he actually can play that last man back.
And he played on Geary, was it Memory,
yeah.
Who really only kicked goals when Stewart wasn't on him or got pulled up and pulled away. I think Membry took a just bodied out Cutler for 1 or 2, and that's obviously not the matchup that you want. So even though his direct opponent kicked, I think 3-1, I don't think any of those were kicked while he was directly on Stewart. So I think Stewart played, like I said, the best game he played. Braden Ham is another guy that we've been asking to see what's everyone rate this guy so highly for. I think he played, especially his first half. I thought he was in and around the contest a lot, getting the ball out a lot, using the ball quite well. Again, could use a little bit of polish. I think he kicked 1.
I don't think he kicked 1.
Maybe not kicked 1?
No, he kicked 1 behind. He had a goal assist though. 17 disposals. Like he was in and about a lot of the ball, but yeah.
Even though we can't see it, I feel like Russ has got both his laptop and Wi-Fi at the house, and he's on the stats.
Being in the home office, I've got
almost looks like
screens.
He's got
Get some stats up.
3 screens up. And my last one that I had there was Peter Wright as well. Like he covered, it was nice to see him just show that he can still clunk, and he kicked 3-0. Where in a game when I think we kicked 8-15.
Something ridiculous.
Something stupidly annoying like that, to have someone who we know is going to play key forward position kick 3 straight. It means that we've got someone there that can take a big grab and can actually convert on those opportunities as well.
9-17
to 12 goals 10. Disgusting.
Yeah.
Russ, 3-2-1.
Look, I'll go with my 4th. Just sort of push on what Lachie was saying. Parrish was pretty good. Only played sort of the first half, but to get 25 disposals, 7 clearances.
Game, but he pushed forward.
Yeah, he played half forward.
Yeah, and to be in the guts and get 7 clearances and not even sort of be that number 1 sort of midfielder. I think he's going to back up like we thought he would from last year. And I know there's a lot of speculation. Can he have the same sort of year this year? I think he's ready to go round 1 and sort of be that sort of dominating player again. My number 1, I had Draper. I thought he looked good out there. You look at the tap outs. I think we won at 42-22 in the tap outs. Just dominated again. Got a goal. Showed that he could still kick goals. And we spoke about that last week when I sort of said he's a smoky to be in that sort of top 50 players for next year. And he'd have to start kicking goals. He'd have to start getting those extra possessions around the ground to be that dominant, Grundy and Natanui type sort of player. I had him at 1. 2, I had 2 meter Peter. I was pretty disappointed in the practice game last week. I think I spoke about where this week everything I was unhappy about last week he's sort of improved on. He's breaking through packs to make marks. His lead up craft was a lot better to get in the right positions. He had this sneaky little penetrating kick for an assist in the first quarter. Kicking as many goals, like the 3 goals I think he kicked.
Yeah.
He looks like he's primed for round 1, where last week I was very worried that he could stack up for round 1. And, I've said it before, he's a confidence player. I think he's going to get a lot of confidence out of that round one, and I think he should be ready got some confidence out of the practice match, should be ready for round one. And then, I had Caldwell for number one, like best on ground, 5 clearances in the guts with 24 disposals in a practice game. I think he's ready to really tip off his campaign this year.
Yeah,
For sure.
I got some honourable mentions. I thought Guelphy's attack on the ball, particularly in the forward 50, was great. I think that's exactly the role that we want him to play, that we've talked about him playing, and he was definitely one of those guys that, his spot for selection come round one is definitely iffy, 50-50. Did he do enough? Maybe we'll come back to that in Locks. But
I agree with that.
Impressed with how he played. Kane
Tackle pressure as well.
Kane Baldwin was my other one. Haven't had a real good look at him, but he looked good. He's got some good size on him. He's got some good leading patterns on him. Kicked a major. We've talked about our issues with not having that real key forward. I think he'll be one of those ones that's fighting it out with an Elliot Waterman for that kind of bigger body but smaller type player in that role. But apparently he's Truck's boy, and Truck likes him a lot, so it's good to see. Hopefully I will see a little bit more of him and put a few more in between the big sticks.
He looks like he's got a good size on him, like you said. Like he looks, Harry Jones was saying, Archie Perkins, Nick Cox, they still don't have that size on him. He looks like he's had that 3 years of pre-seasons. He looks like he's got enough size on him to sort of outbody those, backs. And that was one note I made, was he looked good. Like his body looks good. He looks like he's in the prime to take the next step.
Handsome.
Good build.
Well, a few people are saying he looks like a little bit like Matthew Lloyd, not front on, but like if you see him from the side or the back, it's like, oh, it's Lloydie. Oh no, it's not.
Yeah. Well,
we hope
Lloydie's side.
Is
that where we've been in the forward line for so many years, that we're clutching onto Lloyd sideways? We're almost there.
He's been given a contract purely because it looks. Nothing to do with his football now. I also put Heppel in there. I thought he played a really good game across halfback, put himself in some good positions and did some really good things. And I've got Jaden Laverde as well. He got touched up a little bit in the first quarter by Big Boy King. And then obviously Carousel or Gian Syracuse, someone sent the runner out to him to give him a bit of a rocket. And the next footage we saw was really Laverde giving a few gut punches to Max King, who went missing after quarter time. Really didn't do anything, didn't get anywhere near it. So hats off to Laverde for starting slowly but getting himself back into the game. And then, I've got a long list. But Nick Cox as well. Got forward a few times, muddled up 2 or 3 very gettable. I think he ended with 0 goals, 3 for the game, but running both ways, played that real attacking wing down that fat side. Got himself back of the packs a few times and crumbing the ball, which is a 2-meter wingman you don't often see. But I think that holds very well for him, getting himself involved and having another cracker year this year as well. The Unicox.
What?
Russ is very
Having
quiet.
lost Russ. Any other goods, any other positives, anything else you'd like to know?
Do we want to go with the good or the bad?
Let's start with the good.
All right. I thought our tackling pressure, if you watch the second quarter alone, I think we out-tackled them by 10 to 15, and I think they got a bit of a spray. The first quarter was completely lacking pressure. They kicked 5 goals. I think we missed some opportunities, but we just didn't stop them at all from moving the ball, putting pressure on them. So I felt like our second quarter, and then it pushed into the third and the last, pressure was really good. We ran out the game really well. We got within a goal. I think there was about 10 minutes left, so there was a bit of time.
3 or 4 points and then missed 2 or 3.
Yeah, so we missed a few opportunities, but what I thought was the boys looked fit, and that was the same against the Doggies the week before. So it does look like they've put in a good preseason. It looks like round 1 we should be ready to go. Yeah,
we put in extra 2 weeks. I think we were the first club to come back for preseason. I think we spoke about this around in the second or first podcast that, we came back 2 weeks before everyone else, and it was the players wanted to come back to make sure that they were ready from round 1. So that's good to see. And I agree with that tackling pressure. Guelphy's tackle, I think he made in the third quarter, when it was almost Tipper-like, where he's running people down. And
yep.
I think he's got that hunger to, BJ said, playing for his spot. And that's what we want. We want the old days of Dev Smith, and tip a running down anyone. You've got the ball, you got to be on your wits, and we're going to come for you. So yeah, the tackling pressure was pretty good in that second half.
I might have the positive, which I guess becomes more of a negative too, is we controlled that game. Like, I really felt like for the greater, larger portions of that game, we really were in control. We just didn't capitalize, and it felt like every time the Saints went forward, even against the play, that they would kick a major. And so although, we didn't let them break out and get miles ahead, but I just felt like if you're going to control the game for 75-80% of it, arguably not that first quarter, but from that point on, like, especially the
Do you think...
we can put that team away by 75 points,
Do you reckon round one, without being a practice game and having extended bench and sort of trying things out, we won that game? You reckon if we come up round one versus a practice game, we win?
Yeah, I think when you're within 3 points with 5-6 minutes left to go and you've already taken Heppel and Merritt out of the game, that's probably the difference right there.
Yeah.
Parrish was taken out of the center as well. So yeah, I think we, like, I saw at one stage your man, no, not him, although he did come on. Snelling, he played as a center clearance player for multiple center clearances, and that's not his role.
Yeah, 4 clearances for the match. I was really impressed with Snell's pressure and clearance work as well. Like, that just go back to the questions without quick ball questions 3 weeks ago. Like, I honestly,
Russ, you can't get it wrong. If Ben gets it wrong, that's fair enough. You can't get your own segment wrong.
Kind of, boys.
Was it a question without notice? Is he getting these questions from SEN as well? I do agree. I thought seeing the number 11 run around in the center gave me some good flashbacks, a bit of nostalgia there as well. So, any other positives before we get to the list as long as my arm of the things?
Look, I think we've gone through most of my positives as well. I did enjoy Red Dog getting that that goal in the first quarter. I really see him stepping up again, doing those like sneaky, like, it reminds me of Fletch getting those sneaky handballs and 50 out and getting those sneaky goals. And I just love seeing those little sneaky goals from Red Dog. It really pumps him up, and they're the games when he gets those early goals that he steps up for the whole game as well.
We did muddle one in the last quarter. I probably would like to see Draper, if he's going to take that mark inside 50, just go back and kick the goal. Yep. It's great to have Red Dog and Hind there as that player, but if we start doing it every time, you kind of lose that ability to do it at all, because teams will set up against it. And that's one thing Buckley said in the review. Your coaches pull your hair out because they've already identified that it's going to happen. So they know that's there. And if you see Mason Redman or Nick Hind creeping up when there's a mark being taken on the forward flank, that's going to be the first thought going through the head. So I would like to see more of those.
Yeah, true. Even Hurls used to do it back at Hurls used to do it quite a bit too. We see a couple of sneaky goals there. I just, I don't know if it's nostalgic, but I just like seeing it with the Bombers.
Defenders love kicking goals too. You get the best celebrations when your defenders kick goals. All right, the bad and the ugly. You can kick us off.
All right. We didn't have any easy avenues to goal. All right. I can't think of too many times where we moved the ball from the center cleanly, like kicking it towards 50, and then the next kick was an easy target hit up. I felt like whenever we went into our forward line, the old Worsfold, they'll bomb it on someone's head. Hopefully, in this case, it's Wright or someone like that, takes a screamer. Like, unfortunately, we don't have, without Tipper, the best small forwards in the game. So they just run it out of our back line when we do that. When we bomb it into our forward line, we sort of seem to, like, unless we take a hanger, like they just clear it way too easily. So I felt like, we didn't utilize little lead-up chip kicks potentially in some situations, or the players were just out of position, leading to the wrong places, creating congestion when there shouldn't have been. Like, one almost needs a dummy lead so someone can lead up into some space.
I think there was one where Kane Boardman just put on a block for Peter Wright that looked good. Maybe, there's a lot of those short hit up lead targets were those balls that bounced off the chest or went through the hands and ended up turning over. So potentially, I think I can think of 6 or 7 inside 50 marks that, almost uncontested that should have been taken. Potentially we take that, we kick 4 or 5. Maybe we're saying the complete opposite.
Yeah, sure.
Russ, a negative, a lesson?
Look,
The other podcast.
I put our whole forward line and slow start to the game as a negative, I guess, as a whole. Like, we talked about the worst ball, like sort of bomb and hope for the best. Like, it reminded me, the slow start that we had to the game reminded me of that worst ball era where it was just like, okay, we're 20 points behind. Let's turn on the Jets and try and get back. And we're on the back foot from the start, just like we were 2 years ago or 3 years ago. You know, we mentioned 9 goals, 17 behinds. Like, that's the kind of scores we had in the worst ball era. And I really thought after last year, we sort of cured that. And we had those fast starts. We got in front early. You know, we didn't have the majority of behinds versus goals. And I really hope it was just a practice game and we don't go into round one thinking that we can just go that slow start, not kick goals, try and stay in there with our defense and off the half back. Like, I was a bit disappointed that, you know, Jonesy came in. I don't think he's ready for round one. You know, 8 touches and 1 behind. I don't see him starting round one, like, you know, or maybe he needs a bit more time getting some confidence up in the VFL, getting his leading patterns right. So that was a big thing for me as well. And Locks, when can he even play?
No, remember I put him straight into round one. So
just resting for the week? Just resting?
Tex Manganese.
Oh, yeah.
So there was talk that he had done such a big, I guess, like period of work leading up to the Doggies game, and he got through that, obviously. But, like, the plan, according to the coaches, was that they'd rest him. So it wasn't that he got dropped.
After one quarter, they rested him.
Well, as I said, the work he'd done leading up to that. And then he got the list spot. Maybe he celebrated too hard. Lock for round one. I didn't put him in the practice match.
That's right. That's fair. I agree with everything the boys have just said. We lacked a lot of polish. We went back, particularly McGrath. He's so good at getting the ball. I just feel like there's a lot of times where, I don't know if it's panic, but he just loves to slap the ball on the boot to try to get as much onto it as possible, and it just...
We said that last year. We spoke about this many times last year. He's doing that, like, that worst world era, just that panic ball, you know, get it forward at all costs. And, you know, he did that at the back end of last year, and it worried us last year, and he's still doing it. The practice game, he had a little bit more finesse in there, and he was sort of seeking out targets. So it's disappointing to see he's going back to that sort of slap into to distance and hope for the best.
It's very Resi's football.
Do you think it was potentially how St Kilda played? So we were talking about the week before, like when McGrath went behind the ball, when Merritt went behind the ball, they used the ball so well.
Yep.
And then obviously, like, now we're talking about, all right, McGrath didn't use the ball well. Do you think that the St Kilda players actually, like, shut him down a little bit earlier? They were like, oh, well, we're aware that he's going to push behind and be used as a ball user?
I don't think so. I just think you didn't even really lower the eyes or look for that short hit up target to reset and give the boys time to get forward and be that option. It very much just felt like outside handball, or he just managed to have enough space that he could just load up and really just try to evacuate the ball out of that half back line. Maybe a bit of that comes with the fact that the Saints have just kicked 5 goals in a quarter, and you're just trying to get the ball forward, hope for a stoppage and out of bounds, something like that. But when you turn the ball over coming out of one side of the back line to an uncontested mark, and they switch, that whole fat side is open, and it just burnt us. And if the Saints can do it, you better believe that Geelong, Brisbane and Melbourne will all do it to us.
Yeah.
So, that's something that I don't want to see a lot of. My other ones, Nick Hine gave away 2 50-metre penalties. We just got to cut that shit out. It hurts way too much. We had, I think, 10 or 12 more inside 50s. We controlled the games, and we still lost by 11 points. All big disappointings. My gone missings or my no impacts. Dev Smith, 2 behinds, no real doing anything else. And even Ridley for me looked a step or 2 behind the ball. He definitely wasn't in his usual very confident float over the top, take some grabs. I think he dropped quite a few that we would be so used to, saying 10 out of 10 times he takes that mark. And I think with that, happening, I think it's even more sort of applause to Laverde and Stewart for still holding up in the back line and really still keeping us in the game.
Yep. Speaking of like the marking skills, suppose there's very, very sticky, humid, whatever you want to call it, in Etihad. So with the roof closed, the weather we've got in Melbourne at the moment, even when it's not that hot of a day, it's just humid.
Definitely felt like we were doing it more than St Kilda though.
True, although I saw King up the wing, drop an absolute sitter. There was multiple occasions. I think we did it more often. So I'll forgive Ridley, my boy.
Yeah, give him another chance. Still a lock.
Yeah, it's still a lock.
My ugly, you hate to see it, and it actually goes to St Kilda. Hunter Clark. Don't know what has come out that he's done to his shoulder, but had that collision with Parrish.
An AC joint.
Okay, so
injury.
4 weeks. That won't be too much.
Definitely missed round one, him and Billings.
Yeah, they're in 12 weeks. Up to 12 weeks.
No. AC joint is just can't really lift your arm up, like a stinger for 2 weeks.
Let me pull up this summary of the game.
Here we go. And Billings has a hamstring.
Sorry, not 12. 7 weeks they're looking to miss.
Really?
7 weeks. It came out today.
Poor bastard. Obviously coming off that 10-week broken jaw against Adelaide last year, that big tribunal case. So yeah, that was a good, that was a bad, that was ugly. I think all in all, that's a game we really should have won. And one of the big things we want to see this year is winning the fucking games that we should be winning. That's what we're going to need.
I'd like to throw something out there. I was a bit worried last week. I think we talked about that Durham and Waterman didn't play in the practice game this week. Obviously missing again this week. Is there something that we're not seeing that have they not been? No, these guys are two fit guys from all I see. There's no injury niggles or anything like that. They haven't played the practice game last week. They haven't been named for the community series this week. Is there any news out of the club that we're not hearing about? Because they're two guys. Durham did so well in the back end of last year. I kind of had him as a fringe player, like almost in that best 22. At the start of the year. When first podcast, I had Waterman in sort of the bench as saying, as a lock to get in that best 22. And they haven't even played any barely an intra-club. They haven't played anything.
Always cut you off. I apologise.
I think we've got 30 players literally that are fighting for the top 22. So I think there's 8 players I could name that might be unlucky and miss out. So guys like Durham, guys like Guelphy potentially. You mentioned Waterman. Who else have we got? We've got
Nick Bryan.
Nick
Bryan.
Your boy
Dylan Clark
Flip.
couldn't even get a spot on contracts.
Yeah, I think.
If you look at Nick Bryan and Hobbs, they were named in the side, didn't play any minutes. So Hobbsy was named in the community series, like the practice match, and so was Nick Bryan. They didn't play. They played 0 minutes. It's surprising that we're not bringing in guys to even play any, like ZBT played, and I thought that was strange. I would put Durham in before I put ZBT.
You probably looked at who they were bringing off to decide who was going in. So like if you're going to bring off Heppel that's playing at halfback, you're probably not going to play Durham at halfback. That's not his role.
Yeah.
And I guess the other
I think that is his role. Where would you play Durham?
Plays on the wing.
I would play more halfback wing. Like I could see him coming on for Heps in a preseason game. Absolutely.
Oh well, Truck doesn't agree with you, mate.
Yeah, I think there's just a big competition, big competition for spots. Nick Martin, Braden Ham, a couple of guys we haven't mentioned, Tex Wanganeen. So there's our 7 or 8 players that could be unlucky and miss out. So I haven't heard anything, Ben.
I think you took the words right out of my mouth. I think they're just casualties of having good depth and large competition for players is ultimately someone is going to miss out on getting a spot. And I guess the question you ask is, well, who do you take out of that starting 22 that you put Durham in for? And the same with Waterman. You probably got Baldwin playing the exact same role. Now it's like we haven't seen Baldwin at all. So do you give Baldwin the chance in a community? I would say, yeah, you do. Now the question becomes, well, did he do enough? Yep. Right? And look, injuries are a natural part of the game. Like, Waters and Durham, they're going to get runs at some point, right? And I think that, like we've said a lot, it's nice to have that comfort of knowing if someone does go down, that there is someone of that good quality that you would love to see in the side that's there to take the spot. I think that's a luxury.
Absolutely. And like you said, quality to put on as well, not just filling space.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in past years, if we lost a key player or two, you were a bit worried like who they were going to bring up, and it was a kid or someone that you didn't really have any confidence in.
Check that
And
shot.
well, let's not pick on him too much. And
He
yeah,
has improved the haircut. I'll give him that.
the mullet.
I much prefer the duck mullet. It's all the same color rather than the boy band tips. that
Yeah,
he's been
yeah,
wearing, the frosted tips. So yeah, I think in summary, some really good points that came out of the game, and there's plenty there to like. But we just got to clean it up. We got to clean it up. Good? Happy, Ross?
All right. So I want to know.
All right, good. You have another point that you want to talk about. You want to talk about the comparison between my man, Harry Jones, and your favourite boys, the King brothers.
Yeah.
And one in particular.
So recently on the podcast, you two mentioned that you thought Harry Jones was ahead of the King brothers. And
I said that there was. I don't think that he's ahead of the King brothers right now. I think he has the potential to be up in that echelon if we give him the time. I think Ben was pretty clear saying that he was above them at the moment. I don't think he's there yet, but I think he has the potential to be that number one forward for Essendon. And most people wrote him off as being, okay, we still need that sort of premier, first man take the number one defender guy. And a lot of people thought it wasn't Harry Jones. I think he could be that player. I definitely think the King boys are ahead of him now, but he has the potential to be up there with that category.
Okay, so Ben's sticking with Jones is still ahead of him.
I think he had an off night.
We have Russ backtracking hard from a couple of episodes.
I've never backtracked. And I'm lucky.
We'll check the tape. We'll have to check the tape.
We might have to dub it over.
On tape saying I've been wrong about things and agreeing with you after I was wrong. I say it how I see it. That check the tape, and I'll expect an apology next week. That's all.
We'll have a look. We'll go through the archives. The comparison is Jones, 1 shot at goal for a behind, 8 disposals, 4 marks. And most of those marks were up on the wing in a position that wasn't attacking. It wasn't through the center of the ground. It was hard against the wings.
Agreed.
King, 2 goals, 12 disposals, 5 marks. On the stat sheet, I would say, that's not a huge difference. I think his presence, he looked to me like a player that was just on the edge if he had clunked a couple that he could have torn the game open. And that wasn't definitely Jones.
Yeah, I agree. For this
He's got
week,
a gear on him as well.
I think a few things. I think King had a great first quarter, but he then also went completely missing for 3. So you could argue, although Jones didn't have as great an impact, he was still presenting and still working and still at least getting involved in some regard. As a forward, when you find yourself in games where you can't get yourself involved, the brief is go up the ground and get yourself involved. Like if you're not the target, go up and become a higher target, and no one hits up key forwards like key forwards. So I was glad that he didn't. He was a step behind. He got his hands to a few that went through the pack, or went over the top, sorry. But I felt like he did still present, still tried to get involved, did his best. He'll come good.
Russ?
Yeah, like you said, he's got a year on him. So, it's different draft years. I think, they're both. You look at the King boys last year, both of them were sort of a little bit still undersized. They've got a little bit more size on this year. We're very rumored to say that we're going to take his brother, we're going to go throw the farm at him this year, at his brother, to get him down from Gold Coast. And, if Dodoro says that we are going to do that, do it. Like, I would love to have both of those boys at the club and to fight it out for that number one position. I definitely think that the King boys are ahead of them at the moment, but I don't want people to write off Jonesy. And I put it in my bads. I didn't think he had that, best game. He's had an interrupted preseason. I think he is probably 5 games away from starting. I don't want him to start because we don't have enough tall. I'd rather have 2 meter in there playing as the number one as the number one forward, and have a lot of sort of mid-sized sort of forwards in there, play Francis in there, and give Jonesy 5 games in the VFL to get fit and to get that confidence and go in there. So I think there are different points of their career and different points of their preseason as well. If you take off what we had from the game we just had.
Yep, sure. Cool.
You're sticking with the Kings just to be sure.
King boys are 2-3 years ahead of
convinced
Jones. They haven't.
Yeah, I'd say at the moment I'd say 2 years ahead of them.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Well, one King is anyway. The other King won't be getting much further ahead this year, that's for sure.
True.
Which arguably is the King that we're going after. So that presents another problem in itself. Baldwin's already in ACL issues. Do you take King as well and then have potentially 2 of your 3 key forwards with
Previous problems?
Yeah.
Yep. Russ, I might start off your quick draw segment, if you're okay with that.
Yep.
I've got a question for you two, all right? But a little bit of a question without much...
A little notice.
without little notice.
Questions with limited notice, we should call it.
Do we lack experience? And I'm happy to give you some stats here if you want to hear the stats first. We have Hurley as the only player over the age of 30 on our list. He is 31 with 193 games of experience, and he has the most experience of any player on our list. So we don't have a single player that has over 200 games experience. Hurley is our most experienced player, hasn't played in a year and a half, and potentially is not ready for at least another month and a half or 2 months. And then you go down the line and Phillips, who's just a stopgap ruckman, he's 30 on the dot, only 52 games. Heppel, 29 with 191 games, obviously experienced captain. Smith and Shield are both 28, between 170 and 180 games. They are our 5 oldest players.
So
arguably, fantastic question. Great research.
Thanks,
That's
Russ.
2 words for you. Baby Bombers. 1993. Baby Bombers. This is all I'm saying is it's premiership.
Russ is already calling the flag. I definitely get what you mean. I think, arguably we asked the same question at the end of this year, and we've got at least 2 or 3 players in their 30s, at least 5 with over 200 games. Do you go from no experience to adequately experienced in 1 season? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think at the moment, like, we're a player or 2 short in terms of that experience to stop momentum sometimes, and potentially looking at the game on Saturday night, the first quarter, looking at last season, we're a team that when we're getting things right, we look really good and we look like we can push towards that sort of like top 6 teams. And when we don't quite get things right, they kick 4, 5, 6 goals and quick. And I feel like potentially that is, we're missing Hurley, who might have been able to like stop a goal, or we're missing obviously Hooker, who we retired. Zarakis, I think, was on the cusp, but he was obviously retired. Like, I don't think this is the way forward. But do you look for a player like Hodge a few years ago that you were just trying to get him into your club like Brisbane did, just for a season or potentially 2, and be like, you know what, we just need someone with premiership experience, leadership skills to look after these guys just for 1 year so that we can take the next step?
I think
We've looked at that in the past though. Like we got Chapman in from Geelong, and old mate from Bulldogs. What's his name?
Cooney.
Who won the Brownlow?
Adam Cooney.
Yeah, we got Coons in. We've looked at that before. He's so irrelevant. Cooney's. We've looked at playing those guys for like 1 or 2 years and they never really performed. Like we're like, all right, they're like plus 30. We'll get them in and they'll show that leadership. And there's not many guys that sort of rate their club on their plus 30 players. I agree with you though. I think we're just a little bit too young. And I think I said this a couple of pods ago. Like when I was looking at the intra club, and I was like, we're so on the cusp of getting that sort of intermediate, whether it's like late 20s to prime players in their 24s and 25s. That in a couple of years, when Draper and some of the young lads come along, Keen Baldwin and the Coxes, and sort of get that little bit of a couple more pre-seasons. Like I feel like in 2 years we're getting that absolute prime dynasty stage.
Well, that's what a premiership window is, right? You make a break at a point in time where you say, we're not contending with the list that we have. It's time to start thinking about that 5 to 10 year mark, and you go hard in the draft to get players that you feel you can build the next team around, right? And that's what we're doing. So are we inexperienced? Yeah, I think we are, definitely. But I also think that that's what you would expect given the stage of like that rebuild and where we are in that kind of era, that you would expect that. And I think that's what's going to give us such a good team in 3 years' time. You know, like we've all said, we'd take a premiership this year, but I think we are 3 to 4 years away from our best footy.
Yeah.
And that 3 to 4 year window, your 27 and your 26-year-olds now are your 220, your 240 game veterans that have, you know, early 30s. Your draft picks from last year, your Perkins, your Cox, you know, your Hobbs, these guys are now 23, 24, 25. They've got pre-seasons in.
Yep.
They're big boys now. They you know, put on the weight, on the size. They've got the nous. That's what opens the window up, right? So now I think no one wants to see us regress this year. We're all kind of said it's not just finals or bust, but we need to take that next step. But I think we are 3 to 4 years away from that real, like, this is our time, and it's not just our flag, it's multiple flags that we want to contend for, and that's where we get that experience to come from.
True.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great question. That could be it.
And you look at, like, and even Truck said at the back end of last year that we didn't want to pick up, you know, a whole bunch of guys this year. They wanted to keep the trade period pretty lean. You know, I think that goes with Dodoro saying we're going to keep everything in the bank to go for one of the King brother up in Queensland, but they didn't. Like, Truck didn't want to get a whole bunch of new players in there and just redo the whole game plan. He's like, all right, everyone knows what they're doing. Let's keep what we're doing last year and just improve on it.
Yeah.
You know, look for the future, not just look for the band-aid like we have for 5 years now.
I think that's what. I think it was last week you asked, would you go after Josh Dunkley again? And we both said no. And I think that this is why. It's like, we've built our core now. We've got our team. You see how everyone develops over the next 1 to 2 years. And then you go after established stars who are filling the gaps that you haven't been able to develop as well as you need to bring the plan together. And that might be obviously where they see a King coming in.
All right, we go to my questions.
Let's go to your questions, your segment.
That's it, Russ.
Quick draw questions, not questions without notice, or
Questions with minimal notice.
Legally binding questions. All right, each one of you, who steps up round one and kicks off the season playing the pants off?
Ben?
You want an established player to do that, or a new one to?
One person that, either or. You know, what's one person from round one is going to be the match winner or the one that steps up a little bit?
I want to say Perkins. After what I saw on Saturday night, or Sunday afternoon rather, he kind of put his hand up when there was not much going on, when we were really struggling. He had control but not doing much with it. And he showed that he can kick 2 or 3, get himself into the positions where he can win the ball, win his own ball, but also finish and capitalize. We saw that in the game last year, I think it was against Adelaide, where he got the rising star.
Yep.
I would love to say that Perkins this year is going to have, you know, close to that year that we saw Parrish have last year, where he goes from being, he's in the 22, but goes to that next level of being like he's one of the first guys you're putting on the team sheet.
Yep, that was a name that sort of popped into my mind as well. If I was to give you another name, Russ, it'd be Caldwell. I think he hasn't made his mark at the AFL level. He's put together a good pre-season. I think in his mind, he's ready. And I'd love to think that he is that guy that we know Parrish, what he's going to bring and merit every single season. Like McGrath or Caldwell, my man Caldwell. I'm really hopeful for him.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lachie, there. No, I think Perko's going to continuously get better and better. But Caldwell, this is his year. And I think I've seen the Pracky game last week. I think he's ready to make his mark on the AFL, not just with Essendon, and step up and from round one be that player. Yeah, great. So, okay, defense. Do we think we have the defence to stack up to Geelong in round one and not see what happened last year and then just take us out for a dance last year? We only had one quarter last year when we sort of shut them down, but once the ball gets into that back line, they just tore us apart. Do you think that we have the defence this year to shut down Hawkins and their defence?
I'll go first.
You can go first. This is Geelong boy. You got the inside scoop.
I think it is up the ground, Russ. I think that we've talked about this in a previous episode. I think Ridley and Laverde and Stewart and Kelly and Heppel, they're all starting to really look solid as like a super dependable back six. But if one of those guys gets one out with Hawkins or Cameron leading up the ground, those guys are the best of the best. Those two, in my opinion, are in the top 10 forwards in the game.
Absolutely.
So I don't think, unless we do the job up the field, that we can contend with them one-on-one. But that doesn't mean I don't think that our defense can stack up against them.
Completely agree. I think, you're right. I think last week we got dragged into the Geelong, maybe it was the latter episode, we got dragged into talking about Geelong. And we don't have the monster forward that can play body on body against
Monster back.
Sorry, the monster back that can play against Hawkins. The thing about Cameron too is he runs. He is happy to run and help out at fullback if need be. I think you have to cut off supply, but I'd also love to see a Laverde or a Stewart that gets lined up with those guys actually push themselves up the ground as well and be more of an attacking player and force Hawkins to have to start to think about playing a bit more of a defensive role. And will that tire him out? I mean, they'll probably zone off against them if that's what happens. But I'd love to see a little bit more action up the ground from that last line of defenders just to make the Geelong forwards think a little bit more defensively as opposed to that typical, like, I'm just going to hang out one out in the 50. They're going to put it on my head and I'm going to get it every time.
Yeah, great. I don't see us taking on Hawkins, and I don't see us taking on. Great point that it's not going to come from the final back. It's going to come from that half back line and the midfield. Can we stop that penetration in there? Because we can't take them on. And we found that round one. When we played them last year, it wasn't when that first quarter where we shut them down, we didn't get those entries into the back 50, that we went up 20 points. But once we stopped them from, when we couldn't stop them penetrating that forward line, we just got towed up completely.
I think that's a mindset thing too, and I think that's going to be the trap with a young side as well, is that you think too much about having to stop Geelong and not enough about winning the ball and moving forward and beating them with offense rather than defense. So not want to give too much away, but obviously given it's our first real match, we'll obviously be going into the list and the matchups and stuff like that, prior to the game. I think we've nailed it. Good question.
All right, Kate Baldwin, is he ready for first grade football?
Is he one of Lach's locks?
Let me just check my list here. He is in round one.
He's in. All right, we'll go back to Lach's locks. I'll move on to the next one. Don't want to steal anyone else's segment. The new badge that we've got, it's a big anniversary. How do you rate the new badge on the jersey there?
It's actually the old badge, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe it's
reliving the old badge.
Bit of a retro. I like the look of the jumper. Yeah.
Mm.
It looks a little old-fashioned to me. I know we're trying to get back to the old school, but
about 150 years old, I reckon, Russ. If you
not punchy enough, give it a little bit of a bedazzlement or something like that.
One thing, speaking of jumpers, did anyone feel that they were a little clashy with the kits and
absolutely.
Kilda?
100%.
There was so much
100%.
Yeah. When they lined up before the first bounce, unless you were looking directly at the back of someone's jumper, it was definitely like, this is clashing.
Yeah, put your white tops on, St Kilda, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I'm going to put you this. We know someone like Tipper is out at the moment, and he's a bloke that can sort of win a game for us. We look at someone like Stringer. we know if Stringer has the best year ever, he goes back to his best. He's 27 years old now. He has the capability to win a season or break a season. What's a smoky on the list that could win us a season or break us in this season?
I think you're looking again. Actually, I'll give you two answers. I think.
I'll take two.
I think a Parrish not letting himself get tagged out the second half of a season is definitely one. And I think someone like a Peter Wright that can kick his 3 goals a game, have a couple of...
Consistently?
Consistently kicking 2 or 3 and find some rhythm up there. We lack a full forward that can kick 50 plus in a season. And I think if we can find that... let me ask you a question, quick draw question. If Peter Wright kicks 60 goals this season, are you still throwing the house at the King brother?
No.
Absolutely not. If he kicks 60, that's just a monumental ask.
What about 50?
Even 50, no, yeah. If we've got Harry Jones in the closet that we think could be that person in a couple of years' time.
Don't throw accusations out like that.
Yeah, I don't think in the closet, in the wings, maybe I would have gone with there for us.
So you think he's gay that he can't kick goals? Like,
not at all.
How horrible of you two! If you got someone in the back room, that we think potentially could be in a couple of years just as good as the King boys, and then we've got someone that then on our list can kick 50 goals, then absolutely not. We're not going after it. We're not throwing the farm at the King boys.
Yep, I agree with that. Going back to your quick draw question, and we've talked about this previously, Draper. He shows signs, if he can tear up a season and put himself into that top 3 ruckman category, I think the midfielders we've got around him, you'd go, like, how good is this? We'd have like a top 3 midfield group in the comp. I reckon at the moment we're probably top 5 or top 6. And I think we'd just be incredibly dominant out of the centre.
Draper's a big part of that, particularly coming up against Geelong, stopping that supply through the midfield. And Geelong, for as good a team they are, have struggled with who takes that real number 1 ruck player. They throw around...
3 or 4 rucks last years.
What's his name?
They've brought in a ruckman from...
Barclays has been up there a little bit.
Oh, Segler's gone to the Cats.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting. But yeah, I think that's a really good answer. If Drapes can continue to win the majority of the taps, feed your Merritts and your Parishes and go forward and kick 1 or 2 himself when he's up there.
I think Draper's almost got the capabilities of playing that Gorn role. He took a grab on the weekend that he just went back to the defense, clunked it. He went forward and could have kicked 2 or 3. Like, his kicking sometimes is shocking. The first one that he missed was such a sitter. And then the next one, I was like, oh, here we go. He'll kick it out on the full or something. Absolutely nailed it straight through the guts. So you just don't know what you're going to get from him.
And then he gave off the third one. So a bit of everything from Sammy.
I think he is capable of absolutely tearing the competition apart. He's not there yet.
I put Smith as one of mine because I reckon he's won a Crown medal. He's that player that if he had some discipline and was full fit, we know Tipper's not going to be there for the first probably third to a half the season. If he can get in, play that small forward, get 2 goals a game, actually have that tackling pressure that he brought for the first 3 years he was at the club, I think he's the type of guy that could make or break a season and be that penetrating player. I know he's a smoky. There's
so much smoke you can't even see him coming through.
Yeah, there's not a spark, but there's smoke.
I think I don't see it. I would love to see it. I don't see it.
Okay, yeah. You don't see it. That's why it's a smoky. But what if he came out and played that Crichton medal sort of performance he had in that first year with the type of team we have now?
Do you think Devon Smith's best football is ahead of him or behind him?
I think he's capable of getting back equal. I don't think he could get any better. But if we get that first year out of him, I think he needs a bit of discipline. I think he's got the fitness. He's in the right age bracket now that, that maturity comes in. I think he can get back to that year one for Essendon.
Yeah. I hope he does. Same with Shield. Like Shield's an All-Australian, not for us, but like if someone like him or Smith can be this player that you're talking about, both, yeah, like
But I think we have
different.
better players from Shield being when Shield was All-Australian. I think we have other guys that cover him in that position. You know, we've got Merritt who's All-Australian as well, 4 Bombers. We've got Parrish who's All-Australian, 4 Bombers as well. I don't see Shield stepping up there. I see he has the capability of being All-Australian again, but that's not the position we're lacking in.
True, but he did win an All-Australian, I believe, on the wing. So that is an area, not that I think we're terribly weak, but if he could get back to his best on a wing, maybe it frees up Langford to stay as more of a half forward. Maybe you could bring in someone else, like maybe then Cox is on the other wing and you just feel completely short up.
If Dev Smith, Dylan Shield, and all those other players that have just been a step off where we know their best is, if they can all just elevate a little bit, that takes the whole team up even higher.
Yeah.
And it takes the pressure off Dev Smith needing to be career best form and Dylan Shield needing to be All-Australian. If you can have 5 or 6 guys that week in, week out are just like potential match winners in their own right come together, like that is flag sort of stuff. Like when it's like Parrish is getting shut down, but it doesn't matter because Shield or Smith or Merritt can go in and play that exact role, or Merritt and Parrish are getting tagged out of a game, or one of them's out injured, and it's like doesn't matter. We've got 3 or 4 guys that can go through there and do the job. That's a quality team. That's what makes quality outfits. That wins flags, Ross.
Flags. All right, well, I'm done.
I've got one. If I can add one to your
to
your segment. Can we make the top 8 if Stringer didn't play a game this year?
It's tough. It's tough after looking at what happened last year because he missed a big portion of last year, and we did struggle. We look at his sort of performance at the back end of last year, and that's what made us finals. Like he was the number 1 rated player. I've said this plenty of times that you're not looking over the whole season of 2021, but you look at the back end of 20
last 10 games.
He was the number 1 player in the AFL. The clearances, the goals, everything he added to the team. We wouldn't make finals if he wasn't in that back end of last year. So on that, I would say we would struggle. I think we need a team to make finals.
I would say yes, if you take my answer from the previous question. If we can get more out of guys like Shield and Smith, then I think we do have a good enough team to make the final. And I would love to see Stringer be that like ace up the sleeve in a really good team rather than being always having to be the one that carries the team on his back to get through the end of the season.
Good question though. Real good question.
It's a competition for this segment of yours. If you guys could please give Russell your questions.
Sorry, mate. I'll send
look at my notes here. I had 5 questions. I thought we were going to run too long. My 6th question was: do we risk having him play round 1, the package, because I know how important he is for the season? Do we risk him playing round 1?
Yes.
To get over Geelong, knowing that we have a tough first 5 rounds, or do we make him wait an extra couple of rounds?
He plays. If he's fit, he plays because I think what
I borderline though
of those first 3 games will do to set up our season is worth way more than being like, fuck, we're in a 6-way tie for 8th again. Let's pray we can empty the tank just to limp into finals.
Okay, what if he's borderline though? He's borderline. He's cleared by the medicos, but he hasn't played that. He hasn't had too many full sessions.
If he's cleared, he's fit, he plays.
Okay.
Yeah. I think if you look over his last few seasons with us, he has played underdone, not from an injury cloud, but just from a fitness perspective.
Yeah.
So if you think he's maybe a little bit underdone, but there's no risk of his groin being re-injured, I think you play him maybe as just a forward and just go, hey, we're not going to put that workload on you of having to attend every single bounce. but you'll just play as a permanent forward. But I would love to think that right now, and according to him, he's ready to go round one.
Yeah.
I'd love to think that the club is confident, he's confident, and that we can actually start the season with a bang. Because I agree with you guys. I don't think personally I don't think we can make the 8 if he doesn't play most of the season and have a great year. I think
he's a big part of 2022, to be honest. I think he's a huge part, and I personally wouldn't risk anything part of it. I wouldn't risk him round one unless he's 110%, and if he thinks he's 110% as well.
Well, I mean, we play a contact sport, right? Like every time you go out onto the field, there's a risk, you know. Now, granted, that risk increases if he's carrying something in, but I don't think that you can. I don't think Stringer is the player that Stringer is if there's hesitation or if there's a feeling from the club that he shouldn't be playing at all. I think you'd be able to tell very quickly if that was the case, and I think that does more damage to a team that wants to build, to have someone, especially like we've said with the depth that we have. Why are we risking Stringer? Why are we rushing him back if he's not ready? When we do have guys that arguably can't play his role, but probably can do enough if they share the load properly across a few of them.
Do you think we've done that in the past, though, as a club?
No, we haven't. But like, how long are we going to harp on about like Worsfold's piss poor management and coaching ability? Like, look at Joe Danaher, right? Like, is the prime example of what happens when you don't have depth in a list and you have to rush back these guys who are on their day match winners.
So that's different. You think the difference is we have depth now, we wouldn't risk it?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Look, I agree with that too. I think as historically, we have rushed people back, which makes me nervous. But I guess things are different now that we have that depth. We don't have to.
Yep.
The question is, do you put Jake Stringer in the ground in 2022 when the goal is make finals, if that's going to be detrimental in this 2 or 3 year time where we see the real window open, right?
Yeah.
And arguably, like, hope he wins a Brownlow, but like would much prefer to see him win a Norm Smith.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But we won't make the grand final this year.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
Norm Smith in the future.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Don't risk him this year to maybe win a final if it's going to cost him his spot playing that role in a premiership window.
I think he needs a run. I think he needs just to develop that absolute belief that he is the best player in the comp week after week after week. And I think he thinks he can be the best player, but he hasn't been fit enough. And now he's sort of seeing the fruits of all the work he's put in. So I think he needs to play. I think he needs to, rather than trying to wrap him in cotton wool and hoping that when you do bring him back, he's cherry ripe.
I think he's almost seen, the same line, but almost opposite. I think he's always believed he's the best, but never put the work in. And he's in a weird transition now where he believes he is he's always believed he could do it because of his raw talent, but now he's putting the work into it. And like, this is the window where he could be. He believes, and the work's going in there, that we don't want to get a stupid injury when he's not 100% right to go into a game.
Yeah. This turned into the Jake Stringer show.
This has turned into another Russell episode.
I'll sit.
Right,
I put my hand to set this one out because I wasn't feeling right. So
every week we endeavour to make these episodes more listener friendly by making them a little bit shorter, and every week we get a little more into it. Locks.
All right, I'll go through this very quickly. We talked about Kane Baldwin. I think he comes in round one. I think he makes his debut.
And
Locked out. Unfortunately, you made mention of him having a good game. Braden Ham. I just can't see him playing a role that is required with our list. So I think there's 3 or 4 players ahead of him. And I didn't think he had a bad game with the AAMI Community Series, but I can't see him playing that well.
I've got some games here I'm going to run through quickly.
Sure.
And you're going to give me a locked in or locked out.
Yep.
Ham we mentioned. Cutler.
Locked in.
Jones.
locked in.
Locked in.
Martin.
Locked in.
Martin locked in.
I thought he had a great second half. He had about, 16 disposals in the second half. He actually looked dangerous, like going forward. He missed a shot on goal. I think he might have tried to pass another one off.
Guelphy.
Locked out.
Locked out.
Yeah.
So then we would assume that Stringer's coming back and Shields coming back in. So we're saying
And Kelly didn't play on the weekend. That was a concussion.
from
from
an intra or something that's happened recently, or
I'm not sure if it was from the intra or from a training mishap.
there you go. So then Ham's out, so one of them comes in. You think Wolf's out, so one of them comes in. Who's the third? Who comes out for?
Well, Zerk Thatcher obviously won't play.
He subbed in for Heppel.
Okay. I'd have to run through the names.
Interesting.
I'm trying to fit about 26 into the 22. My bad.
Easy.
Locks 27 for 22.
27 locks.
All right, boys. Just quickly, my favorite, arguably one of my favorite segments, the update on the VFLW girls team. We are now 4-0. The train keeps rolling. We defeated Williamstown Seagulls 65-13. Disappointingly, though, our percentage has taken a little bit of a hit.
That's my biggest part, big part of the week. What's the percentage?
We are 321 points for, 56 points against. Percentage is 573.
Well, surely number one.
We're number one by percentage, but we're equal top of the table with Geelong. So the girls are on fire. So I hope the boys are taking note, and I'd love to see us be 4-0 as well. And if the girls can do it, so can we.
Well, from what I hear, like the boys actually getting into the the WVFL, and actually stay after their training sessions to see the girls play and clap them onto the field, and
Good.
The whole club's getting around the AFL
culture.
VFL.
Winning at any level is good club culture. Whether it's the VFL team, the under-19s, the juniors, winning is winning, and everyone loves winning, and winning is fun, and fun footy is fun footy. Fantastic. That's going to be Russ's next guest cameo appearance with Swift. Is going to be one of the... I might even just start DMing some of the VFLW girls and ask if they want to do a 2-minute bit for us. Awesome. We've almost made it through. Around the grounds, anything quickly from anyone? I saw Lloydie come out and basically say that honeymoon's over for the Rutten coaching era, and this is the year that the expectations are there, and we need to fulfill expectations, and I completely agree.
That's fair.
Someone actually said during the week as well that if you look at Matthew Lloyd from the back or from the side, he actually looks a lot like Kane Baldwin.
And on that note...
any other Bombers news? Nothing you've read? Russ, any final thoughts, final comments?
I did have a little bit of news on the Essendon podcast level. I saw the Sash came out with their first podcast for the year. Actually teamed up with the Lunchtime Catch-Up Bombers podcast for a prediction on what they thought their best 22 was. Listen to the podcast. Great podcast, guys, if you're listening. Disappointed we didn't get a call.
I'm sure our invite's in the mail.
And look, it was great to hear the other podcasters talk. Very similar sort of thoughts we had, and looking back at our first 22 we talked about in our first podcast, like very similar thoughts. And I guess the goal is to get the Sash guys to partner up with the Truth Bombers by the end of the year.
Well, mate, I reckon we're going to have a few watch parties with some of the away games, so we might have to extend out some invitations.
I would love to have some of the Sash guys. I don't think we've talked about it a lot on the pod because it's been pre-season, but we really want to do some sort of live watch parties while the Bombers are playing. And I'd love to get some of the Sash boys on to watch some games with us and some live stream.
And some of the listeners too. We haven't decided whether we'll do it at private residence or maybe set ourselves up at one of the local watering holes.
Yep.
Lovely.
That's it for me.
Stay tuned. Thanks, Russ. Hope the arm's not too sore tomorrow, mate.
Well, I'm sweating already. I think. Don't
think that's really out of backs, brother.
But
there's a high pressure.
Good to me. So
you've had the camera on you a lot tonight. It's been a high pressure situation. You handled yourself admirably, mate.
What are we doing next week? Because I'm away for the weekend. Are we doing Monday nights?
Maybe this is good chat for after the podcast.
We're just talking to people here.
All right. Thank you, mate.
All good.
All right, Russ.